All episodes of A Trial by Podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only. Much to their parents' dismay, neither host is a lawyer, journalist, or investigator. Just two people with microphones and Wi-Fi. All actions discussed are alleged, and all parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. For the full legal mumbo-jumbo, check the show notes.
Choice Hotels get you more for your money so you can maximize any road trip. Like with the road trippers we see here in their natural habitat, the breakfast area at a comfort inn. Here's a dad teaching his son how to make waffles. Fluffy, golden waffles. There's a mom making sure her daughter eats some fruit to avoid the "I'm hungry" from the back seat. And a sibling standoff over the last muffin. This is the cycle of vacation maximizationing in all its glory. Check into more. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kan du norsk?
If you've had that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
I'm Cindy Lauper. My psoriasis was all over, even on my scalp, which may mean 4 times the risk for psoriatic arthritis. But Cosentyx works on both.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis 300 milligram dose and adults with active psoriatic arthritis 150 milligram dose. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some are fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at Cosentyx.com or 1-844-COSENTYX. Ask your doctor about Cosentyx.
Hit me with one more test.
Test.
I just wanted to do that while we were recording so I could put it in the beginning. And with that being said, I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Emily.
And in today's trial, we are discussing Floridian heiress Barbara Jane Mackle, who was kidnapped and buried alive, allegedly in attempt to force her parents into paying a ransom. But was this the only motive? Well, this is a trial by podcast, so we'll let you be the judge. I know that the music fucking hits hard after that.
It does.
We'll let you be the judge.
I don't know how our music goes. I literally just listen to it once a week.
Boop, boop. I can hear it in my head, but I'm not.
I can't replicate it.
I genuinely think I'm tone deaf. Like, yeah. Oh, see, that's good.
Okay, I got it back.
We crushed it.
Thank you.
I need to practice that. So I was telling Emily before we started the recording, I'm fucking so mad at myself because we're trying to catch up. I'm trying to do more one-parters because I don't want to do every case we do. You have to do it over 2 weeks and whatever. And so I picked this case because I kind of knew it. I had heard it before. I remembered it. I knew I wanted to cover it. And I was like, this will probably be a good one to just do a one-parter on. And I should have done a fucking deep dive. But it got to the point. It's like, we got to record. We got to catch up.
Just got to get through it.
So we've got a one-parter. This is another one. I know I say this all the time. Like, as soon as I'm doing this full time, there are so many cases that I'm going to revisit. We're going to do deep dives. And like, I'll make it not annoying as possible for you guys. Because I know you.
Maybe we'll do like a whole deep dive series.
That we'll start another podcast feed that's like a trial by deep dive.
Yeah.
That's like we do 10 parts on one case.
There you go.
Like, I think that would be. This
deep dive
is,
by podcast.
the more I was writing it, I'm like, and then I kept finding newer stuff and more stuff. And I'm just like, this is insanity. Like, we are going to revisit this case one day. It'll be a few years from now. So like, you'll forget the details. So don't worry, I'm not going to do it in 6 months or something.
I probably would forget the details in 6 months anyway. My memory is terrible.
Yeah. But I just like, this case is crazy. And then there's all these little things that happen. And I'm going to tell you all of the series of events. But it's like the details in between the series of events of like how the next thing happened. That's where it's like, I had to stop myself, and I don't like doing that. And I know you guys I know you love the deep dives, but we just have to catch up a little bit so I can stay sane. So I still think you guys are really going to enjoy this episode. It is fucking crazy.
Oh, I love the crazy.
It is very sad, but it is fucking crazy, this whole story. So let's dive right in, right?
Okay. Huzzah.
Huzzah. Just before dawn on December 17th, 1968, Barbara Jane Mackle and her mother were awake talking in their motel room when a knock came at the door around 4 a.m. On the other side was a man identifying himself as a police detective, claiming that he had urgent news about a car accident involving a white Ford. Now, this detail was calculated to alarm the Mackles, since Barbara's friend from school at the time, Stuart Woodward, drove a white Ford. Now, interestingly, in a lot of the police reports, they refer to Stuart as Barbara's boyfriend, but he actually wasn't. He was just a friend. I don't know why they always call him a boyfriend, but he was just a friend. So fearing that Stuart had been hurt because he had stopped by the motel earlier that day to say goodbye to Barbara because she was going home for the holidays, they're terrified. So Barbara's mother, Jane, unlatches the door, and immediately 2 masked intruders barged into the room, the taller of the 2 yielding a shotgun.
Uh-oh.
This is worst nightmare.
Right? Just a fucking shotgun?
This is worst nightmare stuff. Now, according to Jane, the taller man threatened her and Barbara and quickly overpowered both of them. Jane was chloroformed. Her hands and feet were bound, and she was rendered completely helpless, and she had to sit there and watch as her daughter was forced out of the motel room at gunpoint and put into the back of the kidnapper's car outside. Jane was left alone, tied up, and drugged basically from this chloroform. Yet, despite her shock and being briefly knocked unconscious from the chloroform, she was able to show remarkable presence of mind. She managed to free herself within minutes of the kidnapper's escape and immediately phoned the police. Now, by the time local authorities and FBI agents arrived at the motel, however, Barbara was already gone. She had been gone for a bit at this point. And almost at once, the FBI mobilized teams in both Georgia and Florida to begin the search. But the kidnappers had a head start. Now, from the beginning, from moment one, the FBI recognized that this was no ordinary missing persons case. A young woman from a very prominent family had been violently taken, because Barbara Jane Mackle was the 20-year-old daughter of a man named Robert Mackle, who was a wealthy land developer and the co-founder of the Deltona Corporation, which was a $65 million home building empire.
Woo.
Okay? Today, that $65 million, because this is 1968, that $65 million would be worth over $600 million.
Jeez.
Okay?
That's
so
a lot of money.
The FBI knew.
He said, this is big money.
This is going to be a huge deal.
Yeah.
This is not,
This is like
the normal
headline
thing.
It's a hot headliner. Yep.
Now, they do talk a little bit about, Jane and Stuart Woodward, Barbara's friend. The FBI are raising an eyebrow at both of them. They think it's possible that Jane and Stuart were involved. Now, I will give you a spoiler alert. They were not involved in this. So I'm not going to dive too deep into that. But in the first day or so, they were kind of being treated a little bit suspect, which, as you can imagine, is probably puts you in a little bit of turmoil when your loved one has just been taken.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I get it. They have to investigate everybody. Mm-hmm. But we're going to realize this is very much tied to the family's wealth, because their prominence, it wasn't just about their financial wealth. It extended into circles of political power as well. Some of their family friends included U.S. Senator George Smathers, don't know, and President-elect at the time, Richard Nixon.
Oh, shit.
So he had just been elected but hadn't gone into office yet, because this happens in December right before the holidays. And on top of all of this, Barbara wasn't just rich. She wasn't just from a powerful family. She was also known to be extremely friendly. She was kind. She was intelligent. And at the time of her kidnapping, Barbara was attending Emory University in Atlanta, and she was excelling there. So she was from Florida. Whole family's from Florida. She's going to school in Georgia. And in the winter of 1968, while she's at school, she caught the Hong Kong flu, which never heard of it, but I was
sounds pretty bad.
Google, what is Hong Kong flu? Apparently, it was an influenza pandemic that spread from 1968 to 1970, killing an estimated 1 to 4 million people.
Damn.
Which is like, that's a big gap in the range, but that's what the Google told me. So
it's like COVID, but Hong Kong.
yeah, but Hong Kong flu, which is, I thought that name was, because you hear like bird flu, swine flu, Hong Kong flu. Like, that's not what I expected.
Interesting.
Now, Barbara was so sick from this flu that she couldn't even finish all of her exams for that semester. So she was going to have to like take a break over the holiday break and then go back and finish those exams, which I think makes things harder because it's not fresh in your mind.
Yeah.
And the reason that they were in this hotel is because her mom, Jane, came up from Florida to get Barbara because she was so sick. She needed help. So she traveled from the family home in Coral Gables, Florida to care for her and bring her home for the holidays. And on the night of December 16th, 1968, they checked into a roadside motel near the college campus, planning to just rest before their long drive back to Florida the next day. I found this interesting that they have hundreds of millions of dollars and they're staying in a roadside motel.
And they're driving to Florida and they're not flying?
Yeah. Like, I don't know how far of a drive it was. I didn't look that up, to be honest with you.
Wait, where was she?
She was
Where was her school at?
outside of Atlanta.
Oh, okay. Then that's not that far.
But yeah, I guess.
like-
But I'm like, roadside motel though is crazy. If you have,
Yeah.
dude, if I get $1 million, you ain't catching me in a roadside motel for sure.
Well, they don't have Airbnbs, you know? They
Maybe
don't
it's a really nice one. Maybe it's a 5, and
Well, and I feel like they don't really... I don't know. There's not a whole lot of hotels probably on the way from Florida to Atlanta.
It's just easier maybe. But I
Yeah.
thought that was funny.
They're
now,
budgeting.
At one point, like I said, Barbara's friend Stuart had dropped by. Like, he basically just stopped by to check in on her. Like, he knew she was sick and he just wanted to say goodbye because she's now going home for the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And so he stopped by the motel that evening just to say bye. And neither of them really could have imagined that this ordinary night would soon descend into a nightmare that made national headlines. While the FBI was quickly organizing their search, Barbara was already enduring a living nightmare. Her kidnappers drove her roughly about 20 to 30 miles outside of Atlanta to a remote wooded area in Gwinnett County, Georgia, which, if you listen to our episode about the murders of Mia and Sebastian Campos, that was where Mia lived. Mia was a 16-year-old girl who was 8 months pregnant with her unborn son, Sebastian, and she was allegedly brutally murdered by Sebastian's father, allegedly. He's going on trial later this year, and we will keep you updated on that. But if you haven't listened to that episode, it is an absolutely heartbreaking one, but I think it's important, and I think her family wants people to know her story. So go check that out. Now, there in Gwinnett County, in a secluded pine standoff off a quiet road, the kidnappers had pre-dug a hole and prepared a coffin-like box underground. They did this ahead of time. They spent days doing this. And this was no haphazard pit. The taller man had spent days beforehand constructing an 8-foot-long fiberglass reinforced box equipped for Barbara's prolonged burial. Inside were items meant to keep her alive: 2 air shafts or flexible ventilating tubes protruding to the surface for oxygen, a battery-powered fan and a light, jugs of water that were laced with sedatives, canned food and candy, and even a small pump to prevent flooding in case groundwater started to seep in.
That's one of my biggest fears, like very irrational, obviously, but being buried alive is like, I could not.
That's a rational fear.
Not really, because
do you
who's
like
going to bury
think
me
about
alive?
it? Well, yeah, but like it is scary. It would be the scariest thing ever.
I could not.
But it's not like keeping you up at night, right? But like you're just thinking if it happened, that would be the fucking worst.
Yes.
I think that's rational.
No, I think about it. I'm like, if I'm there, no.
Yeah, I think that's the case for most people though. Like that is absolutely horrific.
That's a terrifying one. I'd rather like drown or like be eaten by a fucking shark than be buried alive.
Yeah, and that's the thing is we're going to talk about how this case is eventually handled. They act like she was kidnapped and like locked into a room or something. Like these people this is sadistic.
Yeah.
This is sadistic. This is torture. Okay? Keep that in mind, please. And another note that I just found like chilling was they left a blanket and some toilet paper for her. Like, and that just keeps it in your
And candy.
And candy and food. And like, yes, they are seemingly trying to keep her alive for a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. But all of this is really just grim evidence of how coldly methodical this plan was. It was well thought out, and they had been planning this for a long time. And in the darkness that night, these sadistic fucks forced Barbara into this wooden fiberglass coffin, sealing the lid shut with bolts. However, before they did so, they took a Polaroid photograph of the terrified young woman in the box, and she's holding a sign that read kidnapped. And like when you see this picture, because you can see it online, it is fucking chilling. First of all, the handwriting, the way the word kidnapped is written, it looks like something you would see in a scary movie. Like it really is. It's just all the letters are like kind of pointy and I don't like it. But also the look on her face is very disturbing. And basically they did this because this was a proof of life image to send along with their eventual ransom demands, because that's what they say this is all about, is they are trying to get ransom money for Barbara from her family. They then buried her alive about a half-meter underground in a shallow grave and hurried to make this ransom request. Of her own burial, Barbara later wrote, quote, "I screamed and screamed. The sound of the dirt got farther and farther away. Finally, I couldn't hear anything above. I screamed for a long time after that." End quote.
This is sending me. I can't. This is like giving me anxiety.
Yup. Yeah. And here's the thing is, yes, Barbara would eventually be exhumed alive. But first, she would endure 83 hours in her own grave.
No.
Surviving 3.5 days of pure psychological torture.
No. Oh my God.
3.5 days.
Yeah, what the
lying
fuck?
down in a box. Underground.
And not knowing if you're going to be rescued or not. You're just, for 3 days, that's fucking nuts.
And just knowing that they drove you out to this remote area in the woods and no one knows where you are.
You're
Exactly.
underground.
They can't hear you.
No, but I don't like that. That's literally like one of my biggest fears.
This is absolutely horrific. So yes, she survives. And yes, this is a fucking crazy story. Like, this is very twisty, turny, insane. But like, let's remember, this is torturous. They tortured this girl for 3.5 days in a very unique way.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to talk about, I think the court
why,
system doesn't recognize that fact.
Well, that's why when like inmates are put in solitary, it's such a bad punishment, because they're just, you have no food. You have no like, well, I don't know if they have the food, but like, you like, I don't know. I've seen a lot of like studies that you have to have social interaction to like live your basic life.
Yeah, I mean, you lose sanity if you're just in a room by yourself 24/7 for extended periods of time.
Crazy.
This episode is brought to you by SelectQuote. Life insurance can have a huge impact on our family's future. With SelectQuote, getting covered with the right policy for you is simple and affordable. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents will tailor your experience to find a life insurance policy for your needs in as little as 15 minutes. And SelectQuote partners with carriers that provide policies for many conditions. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Go to selectquote.com/SpotifyPod today to get started.
BTW, FYI. Visit Nexplanon.com RN to learn about Nexplanon. It's an adjustable implant, 68 milligrams radiopaque. Or ask your HCP IRL. Okay, TTYL.
And for Barbara, the horror was immediate and unimaginable. Her pitch black tomb gradually fell silent as the thin shaft of light from her failing battery lamp finally went out, plunging her into darkness.
Oh, no.
And alone, in the suffocating silence, buried alive, Barbara would place her faith in being found in time.
Couldn't be me.
Now
I would give up. I would say, nope, nobody's finding me. It's 3 days. My battery just died. Yeah, that's it.
She would eventually write a book about this called 83 Hours Till Dawn. But she talks a lot about like the battery lamp was failing, and like to have no light just made this so much worse. Mm-hmm. And she was just trying to like sleep and like be unconscious, and she realized that there were sedatives in the water, and it is absolutely horrific to read about. Now, by daylight, on December 17th, the kidnappers had made their demands known. A ransom note was found by Barbara's father, Robert Mackle. Now, very interestingly, you know where this ransom note was? Buried in their front yard.
What the fuck?
Before they had kidnapped her, days before, they went to Florida, or we'll talk about where they're from. They're in Florida. They bury a ransom note in the family's front yard before then going to Georgia, digging this hole, setting up this whole elaborate, like, tomb thing.
How long did it take them to fucking think this? Like, 'cause this goes deep. Like, this is a lot.
Oh, it reads like a movie.
Right.
Like, if I saw this in a movie, I'd be like, this would never happen in real life.
Like, this script is insane.
And it's gonna get even, like, we're just kissing the surface of it. Oh my God. We really are. So basically, they send notice to Barbara's father. Dig this ransom note up in your yard. They dig it up, and this ransom note is instructing them to pay $500,000 for his daughter's safe return. And at the time, this was an enormous sum. It would be equivalent to like between $4 and $5 million today. So they're not fucking around.
Yeah.
And they explain in the ransom note that we have buried her alive. You will get proof of life shortly because they are going to mail this photo to them. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't include it with the ransom note because they buried it beforehand. But they said, we have buried your daughter alive. We will send proof of life. And here's the amount we want. We have set up this tomb to allow her to stay alive for 7 days.
7 days? Could you? Oh.
For 7 days, she will have...
If she was actually in the box, though, for 7 days, like, what the fuck?
No. But the point was, for 7 days, she will have enough air, water, and food to survive. After those 7 days... that will be done. And she will die inside that box. It wasn't,
that's so terrifying.
It is, you have 7 days to get us this money, or your daughter is going to die in a box, buried alive, and you will never know where she is.
Oh, God.
Can you imagine
No.
the nightmare
No.
for this family? It's,
That's
I mean,
insane.
again, it's out of a horror film. It's absolute insanity. So the Mackle family, they didn't hesitate. Robert Mackle publicly declared his willingness to comply instantly if it meant saving Barbara's life. And what the ransom note tells them is, hey, if you are going to pay us the ransom, here's a paragraph, and you put it in every newspaper in Florida in the like classified section.
Yeah.
And so they did. And they made it very obvious. It was all out there in every newspaper. And in fact, he was so desperate to communicate with the kidnappers that on top of putting those like personal ads out with that paragraph, he also published a personal plea on the front page of the Miami Herald addressing the abductors directly and assuring them that the ransom would be paid. And this was kind of just this extraordinary step reflecting their anguish and the fact that they're like, whatever you want us to do, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
We're not arguing.
Yeah, we're not fucking around.
And so they followed the kidnappers' detailed instructions. Robert prepared a suitcase brimming with cash, which, by the way, in the ransom note, the kidnappers tell him the exact dimensions of the suitcase he wants the money to be in. That's how well, because he did the math on how big of a suitcase he would need to fit this amount of money in these bills.
That's insane.
Because he says $500,000 in used $20 bills. And so he did the math on like how much space $500,000 in $20 bills would take up. And he wanted them used because if they're brand new straight from the bank, all the serial numbers are going to be like easily trackable. So Robert prepares the suitcase. He's got all the cash in there, and he heads to a drop-off point in South Florida. And the plan was dramatic. This was what he was told to do. On December 19th, he was told to take a small boat and drop the ransom in a secluded spot of Biscayne Bay, just offshore from Miami. Under cover of early morning darkness, Mackle left the suitcase in the designated area. But in a twist worthy of a crime thriller, the first ransom delivery went very awry. A local resident, awakened around 5 a.m. by the sound of a boat engine, became suspicious and called police, thinking that he was witnessing burglars or drug smugglers in the vacant lots by the bay, like empty parking lots, basically. Mm-hmm. Unaware of this secret ransom operation, 2 Miami police officers rushed to investigate. And as soon as they arrived, they spotted 2 figures on shore, one carrying a duffel bag and the other lugging a suitcase and armed with a rifle. The officer's sudden appearance startled the kidnappers, who dropped everything and fled into the night, and they got away.
What?
So this person was trying to help. They called the police, and it sent the whole thing off. Also, though, I'm like,
now what? Do they have to bury another fucking note, or what?
A lot of this takes place. The back and forth communication is in classified sections in the newspapers.
Okay,
so they're sending messages back and forth through the media.
This is literally a TV show / movie. This is not even.
Again, we're just touching. We're just touching the surface. Now, when authorities examined the scene of this failed drop off, they found the duffel bag because Robert Mackle brought the suitcase full of money, but the kidnappers had 2 bags. They had the suitcase, but they also had this big duffel bag. So this was not brought by Robert Mackle.
Okay.
And inside that duffel bag, because they dropped it to run, they found scuba diving gear. And in the bay, investigators discovered a Boston whaler boat with no one on board. The boat had been reported stolen from the University of Miami's Institute of Marine Science the night before. So presumably, the getaway plan was to take the money and scuba dive to the stolen getaway boat underneath the water's surface, hopefully undetected by authorities.
Again, how long did they take to put this plan together? Because this is thought out so, like, to a T.
Yes, it really is.
That's
really
insane.
is. Like, but here's the thing is, we talk about all these stupid criminals in a lot of our stories. These are smart ones.
This is one of the smart ones.
Unfortunately, they do not get away with this. So it just remember, no matter how intelligent you are, you're gonna get got. You're gonna get got. I know some people get away with shit, but I think a lot of the times that is like fucking.
That's an anomaly.
It's like coincidence. It's like bad circumstances. It's by chance.
Yeah,
almost.
it's like always something that like happens in their favor. Like,
right. Exactly. So the abandoned suitcase, it still held the entire $500,000 of ransom. It's untouched. So although this failed handoff was a setback for the kidnappers, it did turn out to be a very valuable break for law enforcement. Nearby, agents discovered a blue Volvo car that had been left behind. And inside the car were more clues. They found more scuba gear, and critically, they found registration papers identifying the vehicle's owner as 28-year-old George D. Deacon. And a quick check on Deacon revealed that he was basically like a research technician at the University of Miami's Institute of Marine Science, the very place where the boat was stolen from. Okay. So now they know this boat and this car are connected. The car is owned by George D. Deacon. So this is their number one suspect.
Yeah.
And the question was, well, why would a marine research tech become involved in such a crime?
Yeah.
You think this is going to be like a career criminal doing this sort of thing. And the FBI soon uncovered the truth. George Deacon, there's no record of him before he started attending the University of Miami.
It's an alias.
George Deacon was indeed an alias.
Oh, shit. What?
Fingerprints lifted from the abandoned car and other evidence within the car. There were some photographs in the car of a man and a woman. And if you remember, Jane Mackle told the police there were 2 kidnappers. She said that one was like a taller man and then there was a smaller man.
Okay.
That she thought, and I don't think I said this, but she thought might have been a teenage boy.
Okay.
Based
Also
on the
could be a
fingerprints
woman.
in the car, they are now thinking that it was a man and a woman, which makes sense.
So do you think that they left, how do you feel about the evidence they left in the car? Do you think that that was like on purpose?
No, I think
that they fucked up?
Yes, they absolutely fucked up.
Okay.
It was not left on purpose.
Okay.
Because the fingerprints left in the car, they were able to trace to another man named Gary Stephen Krist, who, why did they have his fingerprints to match? Because he was an escaped convict from California.
Oh, that'll do it.
Krist had been on the run since a 1966 prison break, where they said him and one other man tried to escape, and under a hail of gunfire, the other man was killed, but he got away. Damn. So he had been on the run for 2 years.
That's fucking wild. And then they found him in this getaway car.
And then
his prince.
Yes, and then he assumed a new identity and enrolled in school, or like enrolled as a research technician. I don't know if he was technically a student, but he worked as a research tech for the University of Miami's Institute of Marine Science. Now, they identified the woman in the photos found in the car because they were Polaroids. And by the way, they were a little bit explicit photos of this couple. Okay. And they described the man in the photos. And I can't remember who said this. I think it was the police in the police report. Why didn't I put this in my script? This is kind of hilarious. They described him as fat and beefy. Fat, mean, but he is a criminal. But beefy, Beefy's hilarious. Like, Beefy's hilarious. I'm sorry. Beefy's so funny. Like when it's just like this criminal
fat and beefy.
It's like everything up to this point. You're like, this guy's kind of, is he a criminal mastermind? And then they're like, there's beefy naked photos of him in this car. But because of these photos, they now believe that it's not this young boy, because there's a woman in these photos, and they are able to identify her as Ruth Eisemann-Schier, a 26-year-old female graduate student originally from Honduras, who had been spending time with George D. Deacon at the university. So he creates an alias. He starts being a research tech.
Then he gets a little girlfriend.
Then he meets this woman, and she was a graduate student.
Yeah, just a normal girly.
And she becomes involved in this.
That's crazy.
Like, he's an escaped prisoner. So you're like, all right, that makes sense. This beefy boy is able to like romance this girl so hard. And obviously she's a bad person. If she's going to get involved in, she was already a bad person before this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But it's like, she was just in graduate school, and then she goes fucking so far left. Like, it's crazy.
The tables turned real far.
They find out, like, from talking to people at the university, that Ruth was, in fact, Deacon's girlfriend, because they know this man as Deacon. And later reports indicated that, like I said, she meets him, he's living under this Deacon persona, and she became entangled in his grand kidnapping scheme. With these discoveries, the FBI publicly issued warrants on December 20th for Gary and Ruth, naming them as the prime suspects in the Mackle kidnapping. Now, Ruth's involvement, a woman participating in such a violent crime, it drew widespread attention, and she actually earned the dubious distinction of becoming the first woman ever placed on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list.
Wow.
And with that, the manhunt intensified. Meanwhile, despite the initial ransom drop fiasco, Robert Mackle was determined to save his daughter. So he didn't care that they were, they knew who it was. And we're paying the ransom, we're getting my daughter back. Mm-hmm. And I would do the same thing. So the ransom exchange was rescheduled. They're communicating through the newspapers. And on December 19th, with tighter secrecy, Mackle successfully delivered the money to the kidnappers in a second attempt. And the full $500,000 wound up in the hands of Gary and Ruth. Now, the kidnappers had their payoff, but the hours slowly crept by with no word on Barbara. The family waited anxiously through the night, hoping the kidnappers would honor their promise and release Barbara. But for over 12 excruciating hours after the ransom was paid, nothing happened. 12 more hours in this box. Like, they get their money and they wait 12 hours to even tell them where she was. But then finally, in the early hours of December 20th, a call came through. Gary Krist, now flush with cash and ready to flee, made a phone call to the FBI's office in Miami. Speaking cryptically to a switchboard operator, he gave vague directions describing where Barbara was buried, somewhere in a wooded area about 20 miles northeast of Atlanta. And it was just enough information to spur searches in the right direction, but not enough to be immediately straightforward. So it wasn't like, go to the spot, they go there, she's there. It was, they're having hundreds of people search. And at this point, Barbara had already been buried for nearly 3 days. By the time they are able to start searching for her, she has been buried underground for almost 3 days. Mm-mm. And even with this makeshift air system that Krist had set up, her survival was not guaranteed. It's not like Krist is there, like, servicing this thing and making sure that it's working properly. But upon receiving the kidnappers' phone tip about the location, FBI agents and local law enforcement in Georgia launched an all-out search. The Bureau set up a command post in the town of Lawrenceville near the specified rural area in Gwinnett County. More than 100 FBI agents, along with officers and volunteers, spread out across the area described in Krist's call. They moved in grids, literally on their hands and knees at time, probing the earth for any sign of the hidden grave.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts, guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place. For changes big and small. Loud or quiet. Find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera a Claritin y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
That's the other thing. It's not like this grave is marked.
Yeah. It's just a big dirt pile.
The only thing that they can look for is that there are air tubes that are going to be coming out of the ground. It's not like there's a sign, here she is, X marks the spot. So this is not going to be an easy thing to find. So they're searching inch by inch looking for any sign of this grave. And agents were seen desperately digging with shovels. And when those weren't available, they were using their bare hands to claw at the cold ground. The critical clue turned out to be, like I said, those ventilation pipes. In the underbrush, an agent finally spotted one of the thin plastic air tubes protruding from the soil. The search team quickly converged, and hearing faint sounds, they began frantically excavating the site.
Oh my God.
So basically, he sees this air tube, he starts digging, and the further they get, they hear tapping from beneath the ground.
Ooh, that's so creepy.
Tapping.
Yeah, no, don't like it.
Tapping. And it's just, but it's also like creepy, but I think in the moment it actually wouldn't be because
they're probably
she's
looking
alive.
for any sign of life, yeah.
Because she's alive.
Yeah.
Like it would almost be more chilling if it was just you found it and it's silent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what they unearthed that afternoon on December 20th was obviously astounding in a way. Buried about 1.5 feet below the surface was the lid of the makeshift coffin. The agents pried it open and they found Barbara alive inside. She was dirty. She was cold. She was weak from dehydration, but miraculously, she was rather unharmed. She was pretty physically well for what she had gone through.
Yeah, to be stuck in a box for 3 days.
Yes. While she had the Hong Kong flu. Let's not forget about that.
Oh, I didn't realize she had it while she was in there. Damn.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe she got over it in the 3.5 days. But, like, she was sick when they got her. So, like, I mean, that just adds a level of, like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
That is horrible. Now, she was still wearing the red and white nightgown that she had on when she was abducted, though it was now covered in dirt. She painfully blinked at the daylight after roughly 83 hours in darkness. Because that battery-powered lamp that they gave her, like, died very soon after she was buried.
Damn, yeah, her retinas probably were, like, fucking star-shocked. They're like, oh,
right.
Is that the sun?
Yeah.
Literally, that Uncle Cracker song when he said, I haven't seen the sun in 3 damn days.
Oh,
Damn.
my God.
Hits different.
Yeah, that does hit different. Uncle Cracker. I was like, where are you going with this? Now, paramedics on scene were astonished at Barbara's physical resilience because despite this terrifying ordeal, she was conscious and she seemed to be in like stable condition. Mm-hmm. She was Now, she had spent more than, I wouldn't say she's good.
Yeah, she's just
For the circumstances, she was
Yeah, that's fair.
Because even though she'd spent more than 3 days trapped underground, I did the math, 83 hours is 3.45 something days, okay? She was able to speak, and she even managed a smile as her rescuers carefully lifted her out of the box. Oh, I would be smiling too, I think.
Yeah, I'd be crying.
Yeah.
For
now,
sure.
Barbara's, first of all, I know both of us would not act the way Barbara acts after this, but I would like to say especially myself, because Barbara handles this very well. Seemingly on the outside, I would not. When I tell you that for the rest of my days, I would be like someone would be like, it'd be 20 years later. Someone would be like, my husband that I get married to one day would be like, hey, Kelsey, if you could just not scream at the top of your lungs at me because I missed the trash can when I threw a paper in it, and I would be like, what? I was buried in a fucking box for 3 days, you asshole!
Get the fuck over it!
Yeah, like, and she handles this with poise and grace, and it is. We're gonna talk about
probably
it.
Couldn't be me,
but like, could not be me. Now, Barbara's first request was for something to drink, and I mean, this is unsurprising given the dehydration. But otherwise, She appeared very emotionally composed, which surprised everyone. And investigators later marveled at her strength and her calmness given the situation. Family members and officials would later say that Barbara's positive mindset helped keep her alive. She reportedly coped by visualizing the future, replaying happy images of Christmas morning with her family. And so she was just trying to, in her mind, imagine the upcoming Christmas, because this happens, like, she's rescued December 20th. And her mind was, I'm going to get out of this box and I'm going to spend Christmas with my family.
And that's called manifesting, my friends.
Yeah, yes, that is a good use of manifestation, for sure. But she basically says that she never allowed herself to doubt rescue. She never allowed that thought to creep into her mind of like, what if they never save me? Her thought was, they're going to find me.
Yeah.
They're going to find me. And obviously this is like the most intense way that you can think about this. But like, I think that's a thought that more of us should have in our everyday lives about little things. Like, we talk about the podcast. Like, I assume this is going to be very successful and we're going to do this full time one day. And this is going to be, and I don't allow myself to think, well, what if it doesn't work out? Mm-hmm. And you got to learn how to shift your mindset, because I think that's a natural way of thinking. It's like something biologically to protect ourselves. But what I've learned throughout my years of life, you have to train yourself instead of what if this doesn't work out, whether it's school, a job, a relationship, or whatever it may be, instead of having that mindset of like, well, what if here's 50 ways it could not work out, training your brain to say, well, what if it does work out?
But also, like, if it doesn't, then that's fine and I'll be fine and there's something better for me.
Right.
You know?
And I think it's one of those things that it takes a lot of practice. It's not something, I think for a lot of people, and I think this was true for me when I was younger, that never came naturally to me. I was like, and you have to just, anytime you have a negative thought, fucking follow it up with an opposite positive thought and like train your mind.
You like turn it into a habit that like, you know?
And I think sometimes like some parents are good at like teaching this, which not saying my parents weren't. But I think Barbara, it seems like she was very young when this happened. She was 20 years old. I think she must have been taught that positive mindset, which I think is maybe a little bit easier to teach and easier to have when you have $600 million fortune.
Yeah.
I would be pretty positive too, but I don't know. That's my unsolicited life advice for everybody. Okay. Now, within hours of being freed, she was flown back to Miami and she was reunited with her overjoyed parents at a hospital where doctors declared her in shock, but physically in good shape. Now, at a brief press appearance from her hospital room, she does, like the press comes into her room and they do the whole story. Now, they weren't allowed to ask her any questions. They basically were just showing like she's okay. Mm-hmm. But there's a photograph that captured Barbara smiling weakly beside her relieved father, Robert. And it was really just like this moment captured in time that showed a happy ending to a saga that easily could have ended in tragedy. Like, even though they told... I mean, there's so many things that could have gone wrong with this fucking box that this guy set up. And he's lucky that she survived this, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, the media, which had been following the story closely, reported on the rescue with palpable relief. Time magazine, in an article aptly titled "Crime: The Girl in the Box," Crime: The Girl in the Box.
How creative.
It's like you could have buried alive, a tomb. I don't know. Great. I don't know.
Get more. Yeah.
The girl in the box it made me laugh. But basically, this article detailed the FBI's frantic search that led to Barbara's tomb in rural Georgia. The public was astonished that a victim could survive such an ordeal, and Barbara's successful rescue was heralded as a near miraculous event, and it became a case study in why kidnapping victims should not be given up on, even in the most dire of circumstances. As one FBI agent put it, the search for Barbara Mackle was, quote, the most intense and rewarding, end quote, of their entire career, cementing the case's legendary status in law enforcement circles. Now, here's what I'll say. This is one of the craziest stories you've ever heard so far, right?
It's up there.
We're about to double that shit.
Jesus.
It just gets wilder.
What is going on?
Because with Barbara now safe, the focus shifted from finding Barbara to hunting down her abductors before they could disappear without a trace. So Gary and Ruth, at this point, they had a multi-day head start. But now the FBI had their identities and a trove of evidence from the abandoned car and the ransom drop. And almost immediately after Barbara's rescue on December 20th, a nationwide manhunt was underway. Photographs of Gary and Ruth were circulated to law enforcement across the country. And I'd like to think they were the beefy nudes, but I don't. But it was probably
One
not.
can only hope.
But given the sensational nature of the crime, their faces were also plastered in newspapers and flashed on television news. Like everybody in the country knew what these people looked like.
Beefy.
And the couple did not get to enjoy their illicit payday for long because using some of the ransom cash, Gary bought himself a small speedboat and he plotted an escape by sea.
They've obviously never seen Mad Money. You don't spend the money. Duh.
Duh. But his plan, I've never seen that movie. That was
movie.
that's why my reaction was paused. But his plan was reportedly to boat from Florida across the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf de Mexico, possibly aiming to reach Texas or even leave the country completely. However, alert authorities were on his trail, and just 2 days after Barbara's rescue on December 22nd, Gary was spotted off the coast of Florida. He was hiding in the mangrove swamps of Charlotte County, Florida, aboard the very boat he had purchased with the ransom money. Law enforcement officers surrounded him, and after a brief chase, he was arrested without incident. And by the way, there's apparently a bunch of like alligators in this mangrove thing. I don't know if it was crocodiles or alligators, one of the two. I forget which one is like saltwater, but
I think it's
like
I think alligators.
It's just alligator infested waters. He's hiding in, like, do you want to know what mangroves are? Like, they're giant bushes that grow on top of water. So like, and
so
then
if you're
and
a
they're
or
chasing
an
him.
alligator, you can hide easily in those.
Yeah, the whole thing is just a scene out of a movie.
Literally, what's going on?
So there's a brief chase. They are able to catch him without incident. He did have a gun on him, but he never tried to use it against the officers. And it was a dramatic capture that ended a frenzied 5-day crime spree because this is only 5 days after they take her. Like this all happens very, very quickly. And they catch this criminal mastermind, I say that ironically, who thought he could outwit the FBI. And he is now in custody just days later. Ultimately, after subtracting the cost of the speedboat that he purchased and the fact that they found $480,000 in the bottom of the speedboat, like when you do the math here, this crime that made him infamous, he only gained $761 out of it. So like the money they found in the boat plus the cost of the boat itself, there's only $761 other dollars missing. So we don't know what he spent that on or where it went, but that is how much he got out of this whole fucking ordeal is $761.
That's insane.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. All of that money was found in the speedboat. Ruth is not with him. Where is Ruth?
Yeah.
Why does he have all the money? But with a surprising twist, Ruth is a little bit more elusive than Gary. Gary's this career criminal. He escaped from prison under a hail of gunfire.
Yeah. And then
Ruth's
bought
a
a
grad
speedboat.
student.
Yeah.
That got brought into this, not saying she's fucking innocent in any way, shape, or form, but you would think that he would be the one to like get away with this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They take months to get Ruth because after that successful ransom pickup, after he calls to say where she is, she starts to think they're going to catch him. He's leaving a trail. They know that they probably found the car and the boat from the first failed ransom drop off, and she's starting to realize they're probably going to find him. We're all over the news, and she just needed to slip away quietly amid the chaos. She knew that they would be more focused on him, and she knew that that money was going to leave a trail, and she wanted to get away from the trail. So she essentially ditches his dumbass. But what this means is that she basically participated in this heinous crime and helped bury a woman alive for nothing. She got nothing out of it. Except that she had to leave her whole life and go on the run. She got $0 out of this.
Yeah.
And to that I say, Nana Abubu, you stupid piece of fucking doo-doo.
Right.
Like, what a piece of shit human being. Like, you're going to bury a woman alive for money. And here's the thing we're going to see.
And she didn't even get any money.
She didn't even get anything out of it.
So she did it for free?
So, yeah, exactly. Like, why did you do this?
Yeah.
Why did you do this? Like, I don't get it. And all they did was ruin their own lives too, on top of Barbara. So it's like you would have been better off never doing this.
Right.
Like just stay in school, kids. Just stay in school.
Don't do drugs, stay in school. Don't plan fucking
Don't
kidnaps.
bury people alive for ransom.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out. And So Ruth flees Miami. She tries to go into hiding, and she is basically just trying to make her way west using assumed identities, which again, in the 60s was much easier than it is today. So for over 2 months, she evaded capture, even as her name sat on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. Her picture's everywhere. Her name is everywhere. Then
that's crazy that she just up and like fucked up her whole life. Like a grad student too. Like, dude.
In the Marine Institute, she's gonna be a marine biologist.
Right. And
cool
now
job.
she's like the top 10 most wanted list of the FBI. Well, that's crazy.
Like what a
turn of events.
Yeah, what a turn of events. I mean, and here's the thing is like, think this through. You could have predicted that this is like most likely how it's going to go. That's the thing is there's such a small chance of getting away with something like this when you have to contact people and like physically get money from them. The chance of getting away with something like this is so small.
That's why I'm like, did he really like, again, she is a piece of shit for helping with this, but like, what did he tell her to get her to help him do this? You know
well, I think he probably presented himself as a criminal mastermind, and
he
she
said,
thought,
I'm beefy, let's get together.
Yeah.
And do some bad stuff.
Hey guys, have you heard of Goldbelly? It's this amazing site where they ship the most iconic famous foods from restaurants across the country, anywhere, nationwide. I've never found a more perfect gift than food. They ship Chicago deep dish pizza, New York bagels, Maine lobster rolls, and even Ina Garten's famous cakes. So if you're looking for a gift for the food lover in your life, head to goldbelly.com and get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs, but luckily there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Home means something different to everyone. But with Rocket Mortgage, home can mean even more. It can mean a college education, taming your high-interest debt, even a renovation. We've made it easier than ever to use your home equity. That home you worked so hard for, now it can work hard for you. Call 800-4ROCKET or visit rocket.com to find out more.
Rocket Mortgage, LLC, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
And it, like, you would think, you know, the way that he had planned this all, it does sound like...
It's pretty thought out.
It's a smart plan. It sounds like a smart plan in theory, like compared to most ransom plans. Like the whole box, putting everything together, burying the note in their front yard days before. Like this whole thing is crazy. Like Barbara was still with her family when the ransom note was buried in their front yard. She was at school, but like her, you know what I mean? Like for days that note was there before she was ever taken. Like that's so crazy.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. First of all, men are never worth it, guys. Second of all, this money wasn't going to be worth it. I know that's a lot of money. Like, it's not, the whole thing is fucking crazy. Anyway.
No, because you're going to get caught and not be able to enjoy the money anyway, so.
And wait till you hear how she gets caught.
Uh-oh.
Because on March 5th, 1969, because she had no ransom money and she got nothing out of this except having to leave her life and go on the fucking run, the dummy had to apply for a job. So she applies for a job at a hospital in Norman, Oklahoma.
With her real name?
No, with a fake name.
Oh, okay.
But as a part of a routine background check for employment, she was fingerprinted. Oh. And those fingerprints triggered a hit in the National Crime Database.
Damn.
So here's the thing. It's like she had never been arrested, so I just think she thought...
She didn't think about it?
She thought they wouldn't have her fingerprints like on file because she was never arrested.
Right.
But they were in the car and everything with his fingerprints.
Yeah.
So they're on file as being a part of this crime, okay? So she goes to do a background check for this job, allows herself to be fingerprinted. Like she did this. She could have just said, no, I don't want, never mind. I'm going to go look for a different job that won't fingerprint me. And FBI agents were pretty quickly alerted by this match, and they swooped in and arrested her in Oklahoma. And after 79 days as a fugitive, the first woman on the FBI's most wanted list was in custody. And all I have to say about this is imagine being that hiring manager and you go through like a month's worth of a hiring process and she's your top candidate and you're like, okay, I think we're going to go with you. We just need you to do a background check. and then getting the call.
And she ends up being the top 10 most wanted.
And they're like, who calls you to tell you that?
Yeah, like, oh man, I really liked her.
Like, it's the company that does the background check has to call and be like, hey, so this is kind of crazy.
So we're actually not going to be able to let her be employed. So,
like, this is kind of crazy, but that girl you want to hire is literally the first woman on the top 10 most wanted list. And as someone, like, I just went through a hiring process at work. Like, we just hired someone, and I was the one having to do all the interviews and stuff. And, like, we had a candidate that we wanted, and, like, I stopped interviewing people and everything, and, like, there was an offer letter, and it didn't work out. I was almost in tears. I was like, you're fucking kidding. Like, no. And this woman, she was great. It wasn't, it made sense why it didn't work. But I was like, oh, my God, the thought of having to start this process again makes me want to die.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine. You get the call, your top candidate is like, this woman is so funny. You know,
bad day to be that hiring manager.
You know that hiring manager like tells that story all the time.
Oh yeah, that's her fun fact.
Oh, I absolutely would too. So in May 1969, Gary was tried in Georgia for kidnapping and extortion, and the evidence against him was overwhelming. He was pretty quickly convicted and sentenced to life in prison for his heinous crime. For Ruth, on the other hand, it wasn't exactly the same because in an effort to avoid a harsher fate, she pleaded guilty at her trial, and she was sentenced to only 7 years in prison for her role in this kidnapping. I think that is fucking insanity.
Yeah. What?
They didn't just kidnap her. It's not like they kidnapped her and locked her in a basement.
Right.
They buried the woman alive.
Right. And said, oh well. I don't know exactly where she's buried, but she might live for 7 days.
Yeah.
But after that, not our problem.
Yeah. The whole thing is absolute insanity, in my opinion. Like, she should have been, I would have liked to see decades.
Yeah.
I think that's burying a woman alive. And by the way, what if the family didn't pay the ransom? What if the family was like, we don't believe it, and we're going to let the authorities do their thing, and we're going to try, because some people do that. Like, because they think it's the plan that will make it most likely that this person survives, not because they just don't want to pay the money.
Yeah.
They said after 7 days she will die in there. What were you going to do if they didn't pay the ransom? They didn't care if she lived or died.
Yeah.
And they didn't care that this would have been the most torturous, evil way to kill somebody. So 7 years, you're joking.
Yeah, that's pretty light, in my opinion.
That is way too light. And spoiler alert, she doesn't end up serving the whole 7 years.
And there's the cherry on top.
She ends up serving 4.
4 years for kidnapping and almost, I mean, she could have died in that box, you know? Like,
to me, how is that not attempted murder?
Right.
Like, I understand that there's a lot of evidence that they were trying to keep her alive in that box. But, like, I don't know. Is there a charge for torture or something?
Right.
This is crazy to me. She served 4 years for that. That is absolute insanity. And a lot of people thought this at the time. Like, this was talked about in the media, people saying that she got off lightly. And the thing was, it was noted that, she had cooperated after her capture and she pleaded guilty. I'm like, yeah, but she was on the run for 2 months. What do you mean she cooperated?
She was on the top 10 most wanted and she only got 4 years. She only did 4 years?
Right. And the thing was, is they said, like, look, Ruth was just the accomplice, and it was really Gary that was the mastermind of this whole thing. And if she had never met Gary, she wouldn't have been involved. And it's like,
maybe, but she probably would have done a different crime.
But she did meet Gary, and she did this. I think that she is just as culpable as he is, in my opinion. I don't care if...
I don't know. I feel like he should have got the most of the time, but, like, she should have gotten at least the same, if not like maybe a little bit less.
This is the analogy in my head, or the metaphor in my head. You know those videos that are like trending right now where it's someone, they go on a trip and it's like a couple and the girlfriend's like, hi, my name's Kelsey and I booked the flights. And then the boyfriend's like, and I'm Brendan. And then it's like, hi, my name is Kelsey and I booked the hotel. Hi, my name is Brendan. You know, I don't know why Brendan came to my mind. What a random name. But like, that's what this reminds me of. Maybe he booked the flights, the hotel, the dinners, the plans, everything. They both still went on vacation.
Yeah.
They were both on vacation.
Yeah.
Okay. They both kidnapped a girl, and like, it's not like Ruth just knew, like Gary was her boyfriend and he was like, hey, I kidnapped this girl and buried her alive. and Ruth was just scared and like just didn't tell anyone.
No, she actually was
put
like,
on
there.
a ski mask.
Yeah.
And she went and helped him kidnap her. She helped him bury her alive. And yeah, like you're just as much part of this in my mind. You're just not as smart as him, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
My theory on why she was only sentenced to 7 years is like because she was a woman. And I think at the time, women are seen as like, well, she's just doing what the man wants her to do and whatever. And like, this is where, like, by the way, this is feminism. She should have gotten a harsher sentence. That's feminism because that's equality. Okay?
Gender equality.
Gender equality means she should have gotten a harsher sentence for sure. So, like I said, she only ends up serving 4 years behind bars before she's paroled in 1973 on the condition, and I guess this does add to it. Once she was paroled, she had to be deported to Honduras because that's where she was from. And she was permanently barred from re-entering the United States, but still, like, I think this is fucking heinous. Imagine being Barbara. 4 years after this, you're probably still dealing with PTSD from this shit. You probably are for the rest of your life. And she's just free. The
She's
woman
just walking around.
She's just free. I mean, she has to go back to Honduras, but she's just free.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. But this kind of ended the brief criminal career of the woman who had made history infamously as the first woman on the list. I just like she just went and got to live life in her home country.
Right, like what?
That's insanity. And even fucking worse than that. Are you ready?
Mm-mm.
Krist, who was sentenced to life in prison, was paroled after serving 10 years.
Come on. What the fuck?
Paroled after serving 10 years. Again, so between the two of them, they served 14 years in prison. Between the two of them.
That's fucking nuts.
After violently chloroforming her mom, tying up her mom, violently kidnapping her and burying her alive, and not caring whether she lived or died. And like, again, if you're just kidnapping her for ransom, why not put her in a room? Why not put her in a basement? Why not get a hotel room?
Anywhere other than a box under the ground.
A cabin in the woods where no one else is around. That's the thing is like this wasn't purely financial in my opinion. In my opinion, this was some sadistic fucking plot to just do like the craziest, shocking ransom kidnapping ever. And I think it's fucking sadistic. And I think whether like it was literally sexual, like him getting off, but he got off like on the arrogant, like feeling good about himself being this genius mastermind that could get away with something like this. That's what I think it is. And I just think this is absolute bullshit. But by all accounts, he was a model prisoner, and Georgia authorities approved an early release for him to the dismay of those who remembered the brutality of the crime. And it doesn't stop there.
Of course it doesn't.
Buckle up, because I'm about to tell you one of the wildest fucking things you have ever heard about the criminal justice system. Because after being paroled, Gary was somehow able to get a full pardon in 1983 from the state of Georgia, specifically for the purpose of enabling him to apply to medical school. He was pardoned by the state of Georgia because he wanted to go to medical school to become a doctor and was not allowed because he was a felon, basically.
Well, yeah, there is a good reason for the fact that they don't allow felons to be doctors.
Yes.
I mean.
And so this is what happens.
So first he escapes from prison, and then he kidnaps a woman and buries her alive. And then he only serves 10 years, gets paroled. And then he gets a full pardon to go to medical school? What is this man's life?
You basically just read the next sentence I had written, because I wrote, and yes, the man who had escaped from prison only to assume a fake persona and then kidnap and bury a young woman alive for 3.5 days for ransom before trying to flee the country, went on to graduate medical school from a school in the Caribbean and eventually became a licensed physician.
Oh, he fully did. He fully did that thing. Oh my God.
He was a licensed physician in Indiana. Imagine finding out that this is your doctor.
I was going to say, how does nobody catch on to this?
But here's the thing, is like he had to have been using his real name and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, how do they not know? Did they not see
well,
news
they
and
end
shit?
up finding out because for a time in the 1990s, Dr. Gary Krist practiced medicine as a general.
Yeah,
he's a general practitioner, which I believe is just like, if you're sick, you go to the doctor. That's what he did.
Yeah, like family practice kind of.
However, his deceptive nature seemed to resurface because he lost his medical license in 2003 because he had lied about his criminal past and his disciplinary record to get a job. So he gets a job. Now, technically, he's allowed to apply for this job because he has his license.
Yeah, and he was pardoned.
And he was allowed to get this license. None of this was illegal. But the ethical board took away his license because they asked him about his if he had a criminal history and stuff, and he basically just told them no.
He said nope.
And so the ethical board, it wasn't his actual criminal history that they took it away for. It was because he lied about it. Because he lied about it because no one's going to hire him with that.
Right.
Because
they're going to be like, oh, what'd you do? Well, funny thing is, I escaped from prison, and then I had a fake name, and then I decided to kidnap a woman and bury her alive and hold her for ransom.
Right.
Underground. And then, I got caught, and then they said, well, just kidding.
And here's the thing. This is because we started talking about this case, it happens in 1968, so it sounds like it was so long ago. He lost his medical license because of this.
2003.
2003.
That seems way too close for comfort.
Right. And Indiana, I know people that live in Indiana. I'm like, this could have been their doctor. Who knows?
That's fucking nuts.
And so, I don't know. This whole thing is crazy.
Get him off the streets.
The fact that they let this man, they literally pardoned him so he could become a doctor is the craziest fucking thing I have ever heard of.
Yeah.
It's
Who decided that? Who said, yep, that's a great idea. Let's do it.
It must have been a political figure in
the
Georgia. Yeah. But so still, trouble continued to follow Gary after this because in 2006, he was caught after chartering a boat to South America and then returning to Alabama with 14 kilograms of cocaine and 4 undocumented immigrants, each of whom had reportedly paid him $6,000 in cash for the journey.
This man's life is literally a fucking novel that just goes, oh, let's go this way, and then let's go 50 feet that way, and then let's go up and down, and where the fuck is this guy?
I know.
What was your life? What was your life dream when you were a child, sir? Because I honestly want to know.
This reminds me of that movie. Is it Leonardo DiCaprio? Where he just fakes his way through fucking everything and he becomes a pilot and then a doctor and and he's not qualified for any of this.
Catch Me If You Can. Yeah, Catch Me If You Can.
Yes, dude, that movie is crazy.
Yeah,
I think that's based off a real person.
It is.
Oh, adding that to the list.
Yeah, no, it is.
Okay, we're going to cover the real person that Catch Me If You Can is about. So he literally works as a doctor. He's going from one extreme to the other. Being a doctor is seen as being a very good,
it's a
contributing member to society.
Yeah.
So now he's a fucking drug and people smuggler. He's just smuggling people and drugs across the border.
Got fired from my. How old is he at this point?
Honestly, I don't know.
He's got to be old.
I mean, yeah, he's got to be because he's got to be old because in 1968, I think he was in his early 20s when he kidnapped Barbara. So he's probably in 2006.
He's
maybe
be 50s, 60s?
Yeah, early 60s maybe. But
that's not that old, but old enough to be committing. I feel like that's old to be committing crimes still.
Dude, it reminds me of John McAfee. Just doing the wildest shit.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss.
Oof, like wind in your hair carefree.
Oh, like using Clorox Disinfecting All-Purpose Cleaner in the home carefree.
Yes.
Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox Carefree?
He's on a roll now.
Spit toothpaste on the faucet?
You got it. You got it.
Peanut butter on the light switch.
Oh, spritz, spritz.
Spritz, spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back.
Use as directed.
In golf, precision is everything, on and off the course. PGA of America chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business for smooth operations and seamless transactions. Together, we enhance ticketing and concessions for better fan experiences from gate to green. This is pro-level efficiency. This is PGA of America with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
So Yeah, he gets caught doing this, however, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison, but he only served 3. It's like, at what point do they stop letting you out early?
Right. Like who was helping
this
you,
is
my
his
man?
3rd time going to prison, and they're letting him out early again.
Does he just have like a really like nice demeanor about him or something? Like, why are these people just like folding and being like, yes, you can go free, sir.
I think
You'll be fine.
Possibly it's just that he's super smart, so he's very manipulative, and like,
he
knows
he's a
learned.
Smooth talker.
I just can't believe they're releasing him. Like, he escaped from prison the first time.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I thought that was pretty frowned upon. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you would think.
I didn't think that they really rewarded anybody for doing those things.
I just thought after that, like,
they said, no, you're not going anywhere.
Like, they literally, the second time they released him from prison early, they said it was because he was a model prisoner. And I'm like, yeah, but also last time he was in prison, he literally escaped.
They said the past is the past. He won't do it again.
I guess. Like, you would think they, and it's like, did they not make him serve the rest of that sentence that he escaped
what happened there?
from?
Or they just said, oh, well, you escaped, so we're just going to knock that one out of the
I don't
loss.
know how much time he had left on the other sentence. That I will, one day when we come back to this in deep dive, I'll do more research on that. But like, whole thing's crazy. So he goes to prison he serves 3 years of the sentence. But while he's like in prison, I believe, he has to go to court because he committed this crime. He violated the terms of his probation from like when he was let out for Barbara's kidnapping. So now he's getting punished for 2 crimes. One is like the smuggling, and then also for violating probation, which is separate. Okay. And a judge finds on August 12th, 2007, that he did indeed violate this probation, and because he left the state, but also because he went all the way to Cuba in South America on this boat. So like triple threat. And as a result, he was sent back to prison for 40 months. So I don't know. I believe that was probably served concurrently with the other 5 years. But this man, he's just in, out, becomes a doctor, buries someone alive, like insane. And his later exploits and the reoffending cemented the public's impression that Krist was incorrigible.
Right. Get him off the streets. He's a threat to society.
Get him off the streets. And it just illuminated the idiocracy behind not only freeing this man, like letting him out of prison early, but virtually absolving him of this sadistic crime against Barbara. They're like, you let this man be a doctor?
Right. That just is so insane.
It's crazy. But none of this stopped Krist from writing his own book about the kidnapping.
Stop it.
Now, he wrote this while he was in prison, though I could not clarify whether it was like which time it was that he was in prison. But all I know is he wrote it in prison because the cover reads, first of all, the book's titled Life, the Man Who Kidnapped Barbara Mackle.
God.
He's like, let me just make some money off of this now.
Oh, I hate him.
So the cover reads, quote, a breathless adventure of passion, madness, and money. From his prison, Gary Krist tells the unique story of a life devoted to science and crime, love and hope, end quote. Like, first of all, I fucking hate to say it. If this was not written by him and this was just like a novel, I would read it. Like that was pretty good catchphrase they got there on the cover. But like, really, bro, you're gonna write a book about it is crazy. And you cannot find this book anywhere.
I feel like there should be a way, like, if I was Barbara, I would fucking sue this man.
Yeah. I think there's a rule, I don't know if it's nationwide or just in certain states, that like, if criminals who have been convicted of a crime write a book about it, all of the money has to go to the victim's family.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know.
If that happened
I don't
in
know.
This case.
Yeah. I don't think so. I don't know when that came about or like where it is or the details of it. And we've been recording for 3 hours, so I'm not going to Google it right now.
I would like to see this man's fucking resume, his life resume, because he has been in and out of prison. What did he go into prison for the first time?
His first crime that he was connected to was a string of robberies he committed when he was 14.
Okay.
But the first time he was in prison for stealing cars.
Okay.
Like Grand Theft Auto, pretty much.
So he is a car thief, a prison escapee, a kidnapper. Okay. Then he was a doctor, and then he was a drug smuggling, what would you call that? A people smuggling person?
Human, I don't know, is that human trafficking? If he was smuggling people over the border, but I don't know if that's the same as human trafficking. Like human trafficking, I think usually refers to people who are not wanting to be moved.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that, and then an author. Like
then he wrote a book, and then the whole thing's crazy. But with that being said, like, as crazy as this guy's life is and as crazy as this whole story was, we have to remember this is about what happened to Barbara. What, like, she buried alive.
For 3 days.
I don't have words for it. I mean, we all know that, like, we can all put ourselves in that. Like, it's just hell. That had to be hell. However, she seemed to recover from her physical ordeal relatively quickly, and she was released from the hospital in time to spend Christmas with her family as she had imagined the whole time that she was in the box. And remarkably, Barbara seemed to bounce back with little outward sign of trauma. Friends and family described her as resilient and unfazed by the experience, at least on the surface level. She preferred to avoid the spotlight in the subsequent years, granting few, if any, interviews. And what I will say about this is I am not going to say that what Barbara says, how she feels about it, that is her experience, that she gets to talk about how she wants to.
Mm-hmm.
And she, you know, people are saying she's very resilient and she's very unfazed. And I am not doubting that. She seems like a very resilient woman. She goes on to live a very happy and fulfilling life. What I will say is if I'm going to put myself in her shoes, I would not be bouncing back quickly. I think I would be resilient, but I could see myself maybe wanting to present it one way because I think trauma is personal.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I could absolutely be wrong, I have a feeling that this may have affected her more than she wanted to let on.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about it.
Yeah.
But in 1971, with the help of Miami Herald reporter Jean Miller, Barbara published a memoir titled 83 Hours Till Dawn, recounting her kidnapping and the rescue in detail. And it became a bestseller and later inspired 2 TV movies. After finishing her own college education, Barbara went on to marry her friend from college, Stuart Woodward.
Wow.
The one that they were like, raising an eyebrow at, thinking that he might have taken her. But yeah, well, it is funny because like at the time, the police were like calling him her boyfriend, but he wasn't. Like they were
just friends.
Just friends at the time, quote unquote, which I don't know, like if they maybe were just friends, but obviously there ended up being a romantic connection. And so she marries Stuart Woodward and together they started a family.
Love that for them.
She ended up moving to Atlanta and she lived a quiet life, by all accounts, just cherishing her privacy, which I can understand after all of this. And the Mackle family, grateful for the outcome, largely retreated from public attention, although they remained prominent in both business and political circles. In the end, though, we have to remember that, I guess I'm stating this like this is a fact. This is my opinion. My opinion is that justice was not done here.
I'd have to agree.
To me, it seems like Gary and Ruth were treated almost as if they were these merciful criminal masterminds who just wanted money but never wanted to hurt anyone, like you would see in a movie.
Yeah, they like lightened what they did.
Yeah, like they're these criminal protagonists in the movie where it's like, oh, they're good. They have good hearts deep down, but they're just doing what they have to do to get this money, and then they're never going to do anything bad again. And
they
you
didn't
can
need the money. She didn't even use the money. First of all, he bought a fucking speedboat.
Well, exactly. And that's the point, is that's not what happened here. These aren't good-hearted people who just did this for money and didn't hurt anybody. Like, that's what I feel like they were treated as in the justice system. Like, I feel like they were treated almost like this was a white-collar financial crime. Like, oh, they were siphoning some money out. Like, yeah, they got to go to prison, but they didn't actually hurt anyone. They just stole money. Like, that's not what happened here. They didn't just defraud the Mackles. They did not kidnap Barbara and reassure her she was going to be okay and take good care of her and just lock her in a nice comfy room with a comfy bed and a private bathroom and check on her and make her food. They kidnapped her in the middle of the night wearing ski masks. They chloroformed her mother and tied her up. They buried her alive for 3.5 days with only enough food, air, and water to survive for 7 days, with complete indifference to whether she lived or died, or the psychological and emotional effects that she probably dealt with for the rest of her life. I know that 100%. She seemed to take this really well, but I mean, they tortured this woman for 3.5 days in the most fucking unique way. Like, and again, I just want to throw it in there. She had the Hong Kong flu when they kidnapped her. Like, I've never had the Hong Kong flu, but it doesn't sound good.
Yeah, no.
She had the Hong Kong flu, and they trapped her in a fucking box and buried her alive. Like, I don't understand this. Like, there are people who do commit white-collar crimes where they're just, they're stealing money, and they go to prison for 10 years.
Yeah,
like,
this
it
is
just
not that.
long.
This is not that.
Like, I don't get it. Like, this was a sadistic crime. And to me, I think it's fueled by antisocial tendencies. Like, there's no way you are a normal emotional being and you can lock someone in a box. Like, again, they could have put her in a cabin. They could have put her in a room. They could have put her in a basement. They could have done this in so many other ways, and they could have still gotten that ransom. There was no need to bury her alive to get this ransom.
He is a very prime example of like somebody that was just like born to be a criminal his entire life. And like, even though he got so many fucking chances, he was still, that was just who he was to his core. He was a criminal.
He's just a bad person.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are we letting him become a doctor?
Like, why are we still giving him multiple chances, let alone give him access to like families and children to like
it like
that stresses me out that he was just like a doctor for yeah, like, but he was also like no.
And this reminds me of like Brock Turner, you know. We are so worried about, Brock Turner lost everything. It's like, well, whose fault is that?
Yeah, like,
yours.
You brought it on yourself, buddy.
Oh, you can't become a doctor because you literally buried a woman alive? Makes sense.
Quai me a fucking wiva.
Quai me a wiva. Seriously, quai me a wiva. And I just think it's unbelievable that they pardoned him. That's the one fact in this that I'm like, like the other stuff, him getting released early and stuff, we hear that stuff all the time. Pardoning him so he can go to medical school and then giving him a license.
But also that's after he escaped prison. Like, what the fuck? How do you be like, oh yeah, well, we sentenced him, but he didn't serve all of it. So like, maybe we'll just pardon him.
It's unbelievable to me. It sounds made up. Here's the thing is, if I was watching this movie, and every man I have ever dated will tell you this. I'm that person. Like, I talk so much during movies. I know you guys are shocked, but like, I'm that person that I'm like, that makes no fucking sense.
Right.
And they're like, it's a movie.
I would turn it off. I'd be like, this is this is too much.
But if I saw in a movie that someone buried a woman alive, then they get let out early, and then they pardon him, I would be like, that's so fucking stupid. Like,
yeah,
that would make
who
me
would write this into a movie? Like, that's rude.
I would be like, that would never happen. Like,
exactly.
That's so dumb. And yeah, and it's not just a movie. That's the thing. Is like, that would be the other person's argument. It would be like, it's just a movie. Just watch it. You know?
Yeah, it's fake.
But it's like, but that's what's so crazy is
it's real life.
It's so unbelievable. Yeah. Like, they wouldn't be like, no, that could happen. That could happen. They would be like, well, it's just a movie. Just let it go. You know?
Yeah.
Whole thing's crazy. And again, they chose to bury her alive. And even though they set up the system trying to keep her alive for a bit, her survival was not guaranteed.
They said 7 days.
This was a scenario out of a horror film. And while Barbara puts on a brave face to the public, and again, I'm just putting myself in her shoes and I'm a different person, but I have trouble believing that there weren't any long-standing psychological effects or like psychological trauma from this nightmare. There would be for me, but I'm not Barbara.
Part of me wonders if she, not to say that she was like lying when she was like, oh, I'm fine, like it's whatever. But like, what if she, I guess, was more open about how it affected her, that maybe he wouldn't have been pardoned, or like both of their sentences would have been harsher. I don't know.
I don't think so, to be honest. I see what you're saying.
Like the victim impact, I guess, could that have altered the sentencing at all?
I don't think so, because you know what? I don't think that they actually, not that they don't take it into account, but I don't think it weighs as heavily on the sentencing as you would
like the crime.
think.
Okay.
Because like, think about it, when we talked about Chanel Miller, like by the time she gave her victim impact statement, like the judge had already decided upon the sentencing. Like that was already done.
Yeah.
And of course he heard about the impact like during the trial and stuff too. So I know it was partially taken in, but I think it's twofold. I think Barbara is probably just like very grateful to like be alive and to be with her family. And we can see that she's had this positive, like in the box, she was just like, I'm going to live and I'm going to spend Christmas with my family.
Yeah.
And so I think she is choosing to focus on the bright side, and I commend her for that. It is amazing. And I think she is resilient. I think she is brave, and she is very strong, much stronger than I am. But I just think, and I think she's just keeping she's protecting her peace. She's keeping it private.
Yeah.
Like, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't think so either.
I respect that, but I just don't want to make it sound like, oh, she was fine. It was all good after this. Like, that's not the message I want to convey to you guys, because I just don't think that's what happened.
No.
And I don't think that's even what she's trying to say. It's like, oh, no, it was no big deal. I'm fine. Like, I think she's
handling it, and she's dealing with it in her own way.
Right. She's just dealing with it privately, which is
Mad respect for it.
Yeah. Now, in an interview years after the crime, one of Krist's parole officers, and he was the parole officer for his crime against Barbara, like after he gets released, this guy, his name is Tommy Morris, he spoke to the possible motive for the burial. Because again, this all could have been done without burying her alive.
Right.
And he says, quote, talking about Krist, he says, quote, he was looking for a rich, tough-minded female, someone who could stand up to the trauma of being buried alive. And Barbara Jane Mackle fit that profile, end quote. And I think what he's trying to say here is that, you know, he was searching for someone super rich. He's searching for a resilient victim, not just for ransom, but like as a challenge. Like he saw this whole thing as a challenge. Could he commit the like perfect crime? Could he commit a shocking, perfect crime and keep the victim alive throughout the whole thing? Because again, I feel like he's treated as, he's like the criminal protagonist. Like he thinks if he keeps her alive, it's like he didn't hurt anyone, but it is like the craziest fucking story ever. Like she was buried, and I think he was successful in that. I mean, we're talking about it now, and we're talking about how crazy it is. And I hate to, you know, do what he wants us to do, but that's just reality. And I think that's why he chose to bury her alive. Like it was to add to the sensationalism.
Yeah, like the dramatics.
He knew this girl being kidnapped was going to be a huge fucking deal, no matter where he put her, because her family was so powerful and they were so rich, and you know, she's like young and beautiful. And I think he wanted to make this as sensational as possible. And that's why he chose to bury her alive. That's just my personal theory. I don't know. But that I just don't think money was not the only motive here. And I don't think, he wanted to keep her alive because that's kind of like a better ending to this story of this crime. But I just don't think he cared. Like if she died, good story still.
Yeah.
Not as good, but good still. Like I just don't think he would have cared if she died. And I just think they should have spent decades in prison for this. But that is the story of the kidnapping of Barbara Jane Mackle, who
that is a wild one. I like that one because nobody died, but also fuck, that's crazy.
I love a survival story. I don't know if you guys can tell because I've done so many already.
We love them,
but I love a survival story.
Yeah,
I just find these women inspiring.
That's insane.
And like, guys, look up pictures of Barbara Jane Mackle, like because she's so like 60s fucking posh, like so. She's cool. But yeah, honestly, I really want Netflix to make this a limited series. I want 6 episodes.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm surprised they haven't yet, to be honest.
I mean, there are like 2 TV movies about it, but they're old. Like they're from, I think, the 70s. So they don't look that good to me.
Oh, I just saw the picture of her in the box.
Yeah, by the way, that picture of her, when the FBI got that picture of her, they thought like she might be dead because of the expression on her face. Because it's an odd expression, for sure.
Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Hank's the family fixer, always with his tool belt. But living with prostate cancer, he needed help. He asked his doctor about Xtandi and enzalutamide. Xtandi 40 milligram tablets treats men with prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment to lower testosterone. Xtandi may cause serious side effects: seizure, a brain condition called PRESS, allergic reactions, heart disease that can lead to death, falls and bone fractures, swallowing problems, or choking that can lead to death. Stop Xtandi and get medical help at once if your face, tongue, lip, or throat start swelling. Tell your doctor at once if you faint, have a seizure, quickly worsening headache, decreased alertness, confusion, vision problems, chest pain or discomfort, or shortness of breath. Xtandi can cause harm to an unborn baby or miscarriage. Use birth control during and 3 months after Xtandi. Common side effects include muscle and joint pain, feeling unusually tired, hot flashes, constipation, less appetite, diarrhea, high blood pressure, bleeding, falls, fractures, and headache. Talk to your doctor and visit Xtandi.com.
Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach?
Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Spotify.
But yeah, she's
so
very
pretty though.
Yeah, she's so beautiful, and she's just fucking like rich and like, you know, well dressed and cool. Dude, like when you're an heiress to a fortune and then you marry a man named Stuart Woodward, like
you're doing something right.
And everyone said, from all accounts, like at least when she was kidnapped, everyone said she was very intelligent. She was super kind, like very friendly, nice, like caring person. And I love to hear it. Good. I'm glad she's rich as fuck. I like people. I want good people to be rich. I want rich people who rich right. But yeah, she reminds me of like, she just has that total like 60s hairstyle, like super mod. And like, she looks like she's wearing like a Chanel dress in every picture. And she's just is cool. But do you see what I'm saying about the handwriting on the that says kidnapped? Like the way it was written.
Movie.
That's what I feel like he did it on purpose. Like
the dramatics, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Oh my God, there's pictures of the grave.
Oh, I saw that too. Mm-mm.
That is so terrifying.
When they
I'm
said,
gonna post that.
I kind of assumed that it was like in the middle of a like open field, but like it's like in brush, like
yeah, it's in the woods. It's in like pine tree
not
woods.
Easy to find.
Yeah,
that is terrifying.
No, and that's the thing. Like I was telling
they could have easily gone like longer without finding her because of that. Like that's
what I'm saying.
What's insane.
They could the directions that they gave them to
so vague.
It was very vague. Like they had so many people searching for her, and they're lucky. They're lucky that they found her. Yeah. And I was telling the story like yesterday to my family. I was telling them, I'm like, listen to this shit. It's so crazy. And can I just say, it is so nice to live with people that I can like tell them about a story I'm working on for the podcast, and they're like, oh, this is crazy.
They're like, oh my God.
And they're listening to me and not just waiting for me to stop talking. But anyway, so I'm telling them about the story, and I'm like, yeah. And then they said that she was whatever 20 to 30 miles north, and they're like, no way, that was all the direction they gave. They never would have been able to find her. I'm like, that's what it says. I think that's all the direction they gave. Like I don't know. If I'm wrong, someone let me know nicely, but I'm pretty sure like they kept it real vague. And they said they were on their hands and knees searching for.
Well, because all they're looking for is like a fucking air tube sticking out of the dirt.
Like that's easy to miss.
Exactly. In the forest, like I would have assumed that's a stick. Like there was leaves around it. Like
yeah, like there's leaves and sticks. Like it's not like on a path. It's not like dirt.
Yeah, it's not like a fucking PVC pipe sticking straight up into the air like that you can see from far away.
It's just absolute insanity. Like and it wasn't marked. That's the thing. So they had to find it. Like and you just pass over it once. Once it's missed, it's missed.
That and it had been days. It wasn't like fresh. Ground up, like it wasn't like freshly dug, you know?
Yeah, and I assume that they covered it back up with brush, so it wasn't obvious.
Yeah, it's cold as fuck, so it's like, oh.
But do you see why? Like I wrote this whole overview, and because at first I didn't know there was a book that Barbara wrote. Like I didn't know she had a book until I was, you know, almost done with it, and I'm like, fuck, dude, I have to get this book.
Yeah,
couldn't get it in time to record. Yeah, well, and they don't have. It's not like you can just order it on Amazon. Like I don't think they publish it or like they don't make more copies. Yeah, they don't so like you have to buy a used copy from somebody.
I wonder if they would have it at like a library or something nearby.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna look into it because I do want to get it. They were Gary Krist book. The only one I could find online was $280 on eBay. I'm like,
and who's paying for that? Because why are you doing that?
But yeah, I do. But do you see why now? I'm like, oh my fucking God! I know there's so much more detail in that book than you can find online.
Yeah,
and I really like. I could do 5 parts on this.
Yeah,
like.
I feel like I'm proud of you because you kept it pretty summarized, I think.
I know, but like I am proud of myself now, but I'm mad because I'm like, but we will one day come back to this for sure because this is just an insane
diabolical.
Yeah, it is diabolical. That's a great word for what they did. It was diabolical. And yeah, and then they just let him become a doctor.
Yeah.
To be a white man in 1975. Like, wow, you can literally escape from prison, bury a woman alive, but because you're a white man.
So he could become a doctor after committing this crime, but women couldn't get a credit card by themselves until 1974 without having a man co-sign.
Huh. And you know what's funny? He could have co-signed for that credit card.
Yeah. So.
Honestly, I like that fact.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So.
We weren't allowed to have credit cards. Women weren't allowed to have credit cards. But this man can escape from prison, bury a woman alive, get out early, and get pardoned and become a doctor. Oh, to be a white man.
Dude, right?
In the 70s. What the fuck?
If this guy ever wrote a memoir, I think I probably would. I'm not a reader, but I think I would read this man's book because
it's out there. It's just $280 on eBay.
No, I want to know it by the end of his life because that didn't include. I'm sure that's probably didn't include.
But
everything.
I would read it if all the money went to something good.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't.
To like a
I
charity.
wouldn't pay for him. Like, yeah,
yeah,
like.
Or I would buy one copy and just fucking
light it on fire after you're done.
No,
reading
I
it.
would just make a digital copy and put it online for free, so then everybody can read it without supporting him financially. If we all just team up, everybody in the world teams up, and we're like, one person's gonna buy it. He makes one fucking sale, and then everyone gets to read it.
And then we just say, who wants it next? And here you go.
Yeah,
send it.
Either way, I'm good with either. If we can raise some money for charity, why not? If he donates it all to charity, but he doesn't strike me as the type of guy that's going to donate all the money to charity.
No, not at all.
He seems like he would probably keep that money for himself.
He would keep it and then try to kidnap somebody else to get more money.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that, I think now court is adjourned.
It is. Huzzah.
Huzzah. Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Huzzah. Motherfucker.
Huzzah, motherfucker. Sorry, we had to throw in a couple extra because someone told us they hated it, which they were nice. She was actually nice about it. I'm not actually mad, but I like huzzah. So
me too. I think it's fun.
I think it's fun.
Sorry for your ear holes, but
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to bully this person, to be honest. I felt like she asked very nicely. She said, "I love the podcast."
That's fine.
I love the podcast, but I would just enjoy it more if there were less huzzahs, and that's fair. You're allowed to have that opinion, and I'm really sorry. I hope we're still a 9.5 out of 10 for you with our huzzahs. But sometimes we got to please ourselves and not others.
And you know what?
And think on that.
Huzzah.
Huzzah.
Bye.
Now, if you guys love the pod, make sure you're following us wherever you're listening so you don't miss out on any future episodes.
And while you're at it, we'd be forever in your debt if you had left us a 5-star rating.
For more content from us, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Both are at A Trial by Podcast.
You can also follow us on our Facebook and join our Facebook group.
You can shop our merch by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting our website, atrialbypodcast.com.
A Trial by Podcast is a fully independent podcast. If you'd like to help support us, you can do so by donating through the link in our show notes.
The site we use for this is called Buy Me a Coffee, but don't worry, your donations will never be used for coffee or frivolous things, only for expenses related to running and growing the podcast. So thank you guys for your support.
Thank y'all. Huzzah.
Huzzah.